CRPN Central. This is Dr. Fox. Please like, comment, subscribe. It helps the mission more than you know so that I can do more for you. Happy July, everyone. And oh my gosh, what a July it has been. It is so hot outside. I mean, we're talking heat wave hot. Stay in the air if you can. Hope you have a fan. But importantly, this is a season that is at risk for some people. Some people might not have air conditioning. Some people might have to be in the heat. Animals, people. If you are aware of anyone who is in the heat, whether it be a pet, an animal, some of your friends, anyone, uh, maybe reach out to them. Make sure that they're okay. Make sure that they have what they need to get through these next couple weeks. This is summertime. And of course, here I'm in the Midwest. So in the Midwest, this is the time where we're really worried about people. So maybe think about that. And if you know any like nonprofits or charities that are accepting fans or anything that could help with the heat, it really helps. You're literally saving lives. This is the time where it's kind of rough. So welcome to TrialSide Chats, the place where we come together to try to talk about the challenges in clinical research, finance, pretty much. We're going to go through a series of things, but before we start, full disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, never said I was a lawyer. This is the culmination of experiences as a result of interactions with the industry. These come directly from sites. These are true site stories, but if you read this disclaimer, if you continue on this video, please listen at your own risk. Take these stories at your own risk and make choices as you see fit. If you do not agree to this disclaimer, please just turn the video off now. No harm, no foul. And oh, by the way, so I recognize fully after rewatching some of these that I have internet latency issues. And I do apologize about that, everyone. I already know that there's lagging and I'm trying to troubleshoot it. The truth is, I live in a very secluded area. We're on what we call country internet, and you're going to have latency. So if anything, the latency is just a way to deter the people who really don't want to learn about this stuff anyway. But if you stick around and if you listen through the latency, you are going to hear things that are literally saving sites every single day. And so I really, really appreciate all of you who stuck through the lagginess and hopefully learned something. So ground rules for TrialSide Chats. We're just going to talk about anything finance. It's a very sensitive subject. This must be confidential. We're not going to name names. We're not going to name organizations. We're only talking about concepts and case studies so that hopefully we can all come together for an understanding of where we are in the industry and how we can help each other. That's right. Sites, sponsors, CROs, vendors. It's a huge ecosystem and there's a lot of chaos and a lot of finger pointing sometimes, but we really do want to come together to make this industry a better place to save more lives, period. All right, icebreaker. So just got this comment and I almost wanted to send a link to one of the last TrialSide chats we talked about, but they said, hey, I'm a new CRC in the industry. I always hear them talk about screen fail payments. Do we always get paid for those screen fails? Well, so first and foremost, my CRC friend, welcome to the industry. You're in one of the coolest industries, in my opinion, that you could ever be in. You'll never get bored. There's always a challenge. And unfortunately, when you deal with challenges, you also deal with some problems. So to answer your question, in short, no, unfortunately, you do not always get paid for screen failures. Almost every contract that we work with, it has a limitation to the screen failures that you are paid, whether it's in caps, ratios, discounts, carrier pigeons, whatever it might be. But one way or the other, the sponsors do limit the site's ability to be paid for a screen fail. So unless you're very, very familiar with those screen failure metrics, there is a likelihood that you as a CRC will actually be doing work without pay. So make sure that you have that communication plan in place with your finance team and your contracts so that you know that when a patient walks into the door, that you as a site are supported for the work that you perform. So we're going to be continuing our journey down the book. Actually, it's a really, really, really good day for the book because we have a milestone. I'm really, really looking forward to discussing that and talking about what's going to happen next. So if you want to buy the book, it is on Amazon. There's a QR code and there's a link below if you want to go on Amazon. If you would rather buy directly from CRPN, give us a call. We can give you 10% off of the shipping. Or no, sorry, we can give you 10% off the price of the book, and then we'll offer free shipping as well. So one or the other, I really want to note that this book took a long time to write, and it was designed to be an affordable venue for sites. So when you buy this book, you are literally buying like a guidebook from front to back. If you wanted to be in boot camp to understand how to start this trial process, here it is. I've heard some people say, hey, that's way too expensive for a book. I'll just have AI read it or I'll just look it up. It's amazing how people have discounted the value of information provided by others because of the internet. But I really should stress that, I mean, you could buy this book or you could pay a lot of money for someone to either consult or to do the work for you. This is an affordable option. And if you don't want to buy the book, just listen to YouTube. I'm trying really, really hard so that if you want to learn about this industry, if you need this information to help your patients, it is going to be there at whatever level and rate that you can afford. But importantly, I want you to know that if you're saving lives, I want you to know that you're supported. So thank you so much for everyone out there. And if you need help navigating this industry so that you can save patient lives, please let me know. All right. Big congratulations to Brad Hightower. Actually, I think if I remember right, I may be talking with Brad next week on Note to File. So I think we're going to be talking about this. Really, really cool peer-reviewed publication out of Cambridge University Press. We did a little bit of a financial case study, so to speak, trying to figure out how to stress test best practices in finances for optimal results at a research site. If any of this sounds familiar when you read this paper, guess what? It's right here. That's what we're talking about. All right, so this is it, everyone. So there's three major components to a trial, as we talked about before. There's pre-study, there's study management, and then there's post-study. Three chapters. Today, 21 episodes later, we are finishing. Yay! We're finishing pre-study, which means that by the end of this episode, you would have already gotten a complete overview of the entire industry. And then you would have gotten from all the way the feasibility, all the way up to now where we're signing a contract, everything pre-study as far as budget goes, all the negotiations, everything. We have completed it and covered it. If this is your first video of the series, I would recommend going back to the other episodes. We are going to start renaming them and labeling them so you'll see content better, not just in the comments, but the reason why that happened is because we didn't know everything that we were going to cover every episode, but now we do, and we can go back and rename it so that you can have the information that you need readily accessible. One thing and caveat that I should say, if you have the book in front of you, you're going to be like, hey, Dr. Fox, you didn't cover these. And I know it was intentional. So there's a couple of reasons. So just so you know, if you do have the book, there are sections on participant stipends and reimbursements. It is really good and important, but so many sites do it differently. Sometimes they offer vendors, sometimes they don't. There's a lot of different rules around there. And so I have it in the book, but I don't have it presented on TrialSide chats. If you have any questions about that, we can always talk about it. But I would recommend that you talk to your organization about how you handle participant stipends and reimbursements. The other section that you're going to read in the book that you're not going to see in TrialSide chats is going to be on negotiation strategies. And there's a reason for that too. One is it's kind of like every site is going to develop their own. It's got to be customized. And if you read the section, it's going to really help you develop your own. But at the same time, we've kind of talked about a lot of it before. So one of the reasons why I skipped negotiation strategies is it's kind of repetitive to what we were doing. We just kind of blended those negotiation strategies in with the rest of the conversation. And so we're not going to cover that. But before I get the text messages or the comments from people saying, hey, you skipped this part. There's a reason, and I would highly encourage you, if you have the book, to read those sections. All right, so we know that that generally an offer comes from the sponsor. So the sponsor, they're going to have a development of the protocol, 18 months of due diligence. They're developing the protocol, building a quote with the sponsor. The CRO is going to benchmark it. They're going to predict budgets. They're going to get approved budgets. 18 months later, they finally bring the sites into the mix. Okay, we award the sites, do a full site search, CDAs, NDAs, feasibilities, bam, site, you're awarded a trial. We're going to send you off to our finance team. We're going to go through first offer. Site takes it. Did they approve or not? Nope. I want a counter. So we're going to do a first counter back to the sponsor CRO. Give me your letter of justification. Provide your reason and rationale. All of these things. Is the CRO sponsor going to approve it? Probably not. Not on a first offer. If a site is doing it properly, they're going to have this first offer that the sponsor CRO, they're going to say, hey, this is the biggest budget that we have in our entire group of sites that we're working with, all these different things that they're going to say to try to make the sites think that they're overpricing themselves. So they're going to say, no, I don't approve it. I'm going to give you a second offer. And when you know it, the sponsor CRO, they had some wiggle room anyway. So the second offer is going to be a little bit higher theoretically, but is it going to be okay for the site? Site, you're going to have to know your budget. You're going to have to know your cost. You're going to have to know if this is appropriate. You may have to justify additional. You may have to look in the protocol and identify if something's changed. Nope. Site says, nope. I'm going to send a second counter. This is it. We're done. Sponsor gets the second counter, says, hey, you know what? We're close, but there's still some things that are not quite right. So we're going to have to escalate this. So give us some additional information, answer some questions. They're going to send it to the sponsor. Sponsor looks at it, comes back, says, hey, this is what we'll give them. Now, site, after the third offer, that is kind of like the point of no return. If you continue to negotiate after that third offer, the industry kind of sees that as being a site that's not worth working with. So do that at your own risk. Understand can you accept this trial or not. If you approve it, you're going to go to finalization, get the CTA signed, and that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't approve it, you can always go back for a third counter, so to speak. Third counter, fourth counter, fifth counter. I mean, you're never going to get to a sixth counter. By the time you get to a sixth counter, sponsor's like, well, I've already awarded all my trials to the other sites. I don't want to work with you. You guys are too expensive, or I don't want to work with you. You don't have the right provisions, whatever it is. Sponsor might put you in a holding pattern just in case the other sites fall through. But ideally, sites, I'm sorry, but after that third offer, if it doesn't work for you, it's probably not a good fit. So the reason why I put this forward is everything that we've been talking about in pre-study kind of falls into the processes of this map. So as you're going through here, make sure that you have your letters of justification. Make sure that you understand your costing. Make sure that you understand that it's very, very possible that you should not accept and sign a contract with every single trial that's thrown your way. Sites, there are bad trials, bad budgets that you will lose money on. And the more successful you are, the more selective you can be. And that's where you want to get to. You want to get to a point where about 20% of your trials that you're awarded, that you have a contract to sign, you look at that and you say, no, I'm good. I'm good. This doesn't quite fit into our quality standards, whatever it might be. And that's okay. Just do it respectfully. Sponsors, the same thing. I already know, and we know, no secret, that you have over-awarded trials. There are sites that will be awarded a trial who will never be activated. And unfortunately, there are contractual terms in place to take advantage of those sites where they're going to go through all the work to activate. And then the contract says they don't get paid until SIV. So then they did all that work and now they're out money because they'll never be activated. So there's a lot of mistrust, a lot of manipulation, a lot of things that we really need to understand on both sides, how we can navigate through so that everyone can succeed. I really do believe everyone can succeed, but we can't do it with the current system. If you want to learn how I think we can do it better, come talk to me about CRPN sometime. That's the number one dream, but that's another podcast. All right, so I did say we're not going to talk about negotiation strategy, but I do want to really go back to that process map. So generally, sponsors and CROs will start their offer, come up to first offer, sites give a first counter. This CRO sponsor has second offer, second counter, third offer, third counter, back and forth, site and CRO. And every single one of those places has a negotiation strategy that could be working depending on the person you're working with. It's literally, this is where the art comes in. You have to be able to read the room or the email, and you have to understand, okay, this is where they're coming from. This is the strategy they're applying. This is the best strategy that I can do based off of the situation to make sure that we can optimize the needs of each other. It's kind of like knowing your opponent and knowing what you need and finding the balance. It's going to be very, very much like a sine wave. The sponsor is going to be at the very bottom, sites at the very top, up, high, low, little higher, little lower. Then everyone kind of comes off to an average or a median. That is when everyone walks away knowing that everyone gave up something so that we can finally proceed to the trial. All right, so offer comes in, site approves. Yes, this is approved. Congratulations, this is good. Please finalize. Those are the best words that a negotiator loves to hear. Please finalize. We're done, right? Everything's good. We've agreed on a contract, right? No, that unfortunately, there's an activation energy at the very last step that is almost critical to the performance of the trial for everyone. So number one, sites, you have to have this ready, and ideally you should not be volunteering this until you know that this is a thing. You know that you have an approved trial. Have your current W-9 ready. It should be done every year, or pay attention to the IRS. Sometimes the IRS comes out with a new form. Whenever that happens, you want to make sure that you have an updated W-9. Make sure it's signed by a signatory. Make sure you have bank information. So bank information depends on sponsor, but there's a very, very special process to do it. Are you going to need to fill out a form from the sponsor? There are some CROs that have a standard form that has to be filled out for every single trial. It's not going to be part of the contract. It's going to be this extra form you have to fill out, bank information, some NPI numbers for Sunshine Act. You're going to have to fill out certain things. Sometimes sites are going to have midway bank accounts or split deposits. Sometimes those forms are sent out by CROs so that the CRO knows how to do it. So there's a lot of things around the W-9, the bank information. Most sponsors, the big ones, they're going to want a voided check. So have a voided check ready and on file to give to them. And then also, you're probably going to want to look at maybe even getting on file a bank letter. So a lot of sponsors will require a letter from the bank confirming the account and routing numbers to make sure that they are correct. So bank letterhead and everything, account routing numbers. And now, in the age of AI, a lot of sponsors and CROs are requiring a phone call conversation to confirm banking information. So you're going to have to be able to coordinate all of this with the finalization of the contract. So please finalize. Okay, please fill out your banking information, send me your W-9. We're getting that all set. Now's the QA process. So when you tell a CRO, okay, please finalize, what they're going to do is they're going to approve all of the red lines. They're going to create a clean draft, a clean copy, and they're going to send it to their QA department for review. So the QA department is going to look at it, and they're going to look at any discrepancies. They're probably going to look at the conversations of the negotiation, make sure that everything is captured as it should have been based off of the negotiation. And they may come back with, hey, QA just looked at it, and there's a couple errors here. Is this okay? And the site's going to have to say, I looked at these. I agree to them. I agree with your QA department. That's fine. But there's another side to it, sites. When you get sent a clean copy from the sponsor and CRO, you need to make sure that you also do your due diligence. It is, as an independent contractor, as an organization, you really, really need to do that extra layer of contract review prior to routing this for signatures. Um, it's important. And let me tell you right now that it is much, much, much easier to make these changes before you pour the concrete, before you set it, before you sign it, than to go back later and create an amendment. This is the point where make sure that everything is correct. Make sure that what is written is there. Make sure that what you see in the contract is complete. Make sure that there's not some random Excel spreadsheet that's not part of the contract that you have to look at to manage your contract. It is really, really important to have a strong QA process when you are finalizing. So, W9 banking information, QA, sponsor, and site, they all come together. Everyone has had their chance to look at this and say, yes, we agree. This is the thing that we're going to sign. Approved. Done. Okay, so who's going to do it? Who's going to do the signatures? It could happen in a couple of ways depending on the site. And I think that's the next slide, so we're going to go there. Okay, so we're going to run for signatures. Number one is it is very, very rare for a site to be asked to initiate the signature process. Most of the trials out there with big CROs are going to have their own processes in place for signature. And so it's best that they start the signature process. Sites very rarely are going to be sent a partially executed agreement. In other words, sites will not be sent an agreement that someone has already signed. Most of the time that when a site looks at it, it's going to be clean. There's not going to be a signature at all. Sites normally first, then it goes to the CRO, then they will route it for signatures to the sponsor or the sponsor representative, and then the sites will be sent back the fully executed agreement. So many, many times, depending on how things work, sometimes sites like to own their own electronic signatures. So they could take the clean document, run it through their systems as long as it's 21 CFR compliant, and then send that partially executed agreement back to the sponsor CRO. Sites may also have a wet or electronic a wet signature where they're just going to have the PI sign the signature page, and then it's going to be a scanned in version rather than an electronic version. But whatever it is, sites normally get the clean copy, they make the partially executed agreement, and then they send that over to the sponsor CRO to confirm the agreement, to confirm the signature, and to get it fully executed. If you're doing an electronic signature, make sure that it's not just the signature page that you are doing. Also include that envelope. So by envelope, I mean that digital trail of where the contract has gone and where it's been signed, the timestamps. Make sure that it is a fully compliant contract. And then one last thing, this is where it gets really weird because by the time you are finalizing this, you're probably gone through 3 to 6 months of negotiations. Everyone is tired. You've got operations people breathing down your neck to get things started so they can schedule things. It is highly, highly stressful. And many times when the sponsor CRO come back and say, hey, I just heard back from our QA department. So yeah, about this item here, yeah, we need to go ahead and change that. And that is a point where they're kind of pushing a little farther than they should have because both parties have already approved. So they're kind of changing their mind. They're getting like buyer's remorse, so to speak. So be really, really careful not to reopen the negotiation by the time you are ready to finalize it. A lot of times sites are just fatigued and they just want to get it signed and they just want to get that startup payment sent out. And then fine, whatever, approve. Just get the thing in front of me so I can sign it. That is a level of desperation that many sponsors and CROs will look at to try to reduce what was negotiated. So be very, very careful about that. And it's happened before. Hey, I talked to the team. Yeah, we really need to change this. We really need to knock it off on this invoiceable. Or, you know what? I talked to the team. Yeah, we really need to not calculate overhead on these invoiceables. All of those things coming together You say, no, actually, that was part of the approval. No, this is how it needs to work. It needs to be signed according to how we approved it the first time. That is the direction that you have to get to, sites. So just when you thought finalization meant letting your guard down, okay, the job's done, it's approved, I don't have to do this contention anymore. Just when you thought you could get away from it, it's coming right back to hit you. So be ready for that and be ready to push back, because it is really, really hard to sit here and think, oh, I'm just one signature away from finishing this process. Just go ahead and approve it. Just why not? Let's just do. No, you can't. You cannot get into that mindset, my friends. Stick to your guns. Stick to your negotiation. No, approved as we did before. That is it. And the sponsors that want to work with you will end up working with you. I don't think I've ever had pushbacks from them. I think it's like their attempt to do one more little push to see how desperate you are. And well, it all depends. It depends on how things are going. There's one exception that I've made to that, and that is when a patient was very, very sick and they needed that trial to live. I'm like, I'm not risking another round of negotiations for this patient. That's the only time I've ever done that. All right, so kind of like a summary, page 104, we've approved the CTA and budget. We've finalized it, and by finalize, I mean there's your banking information going through QA. Everything is good. We've created a clean draft that everyone has agreed on. This is the truth that we will be running with forever. Sponsor QA approval. Sometimes sites, you will get a partially executed agreement to sign. Some big sponsors will do that. And sometimes it's really tricky, because when they send you a partially executed agreement that is already signed through like DocuSign or some kind of an electronic signature, you can't edit it, which means it's hard for you to properly, through 21 CFR, electronically sign it with your systems when they've already locked something. So it's a good idea, if they're going to do that, if they're going to send you a partially executed agreement, maybe ask the sponsor or CRO to handle the entire signature workflow. Give them the emails of the people who need to sign in your organization. They'll sign it up on their DocuSign and make it part of that same workflow that they just did with the partially executed agreement they created. That way it is fully compliant. Everyone has signed in the right workflow with the same exact envelope, so that you don't duplicate the electronic efforts and create two records of envelope. Highly recommend work that out with your CRO representative when you are ready to finalize. So, clean agreement, ready to sign. One way or the other, the site gets a signature, whether from a CRO request to sign, or the site runs it through their internal processes and then sends it as a partially executed agreement. We have a partially executed draft. Partially executed means someone or a couple people have signed it, but not everyone has signed it. Therefore, it is not fully executed yet. As soon as that last signature hits, bam, it's like everything comes together. It's a giant cool puzzle piece. We're all good to go. This contract is live as soon as the effective date. So check the effective date. It could be effective the last signature on this page, or it could be a hardwired effective date of some backdating or something like that. But we have an effective date, and everyone who is part of the agreement has agreed to this effective date, and this is what we're going to start. Congratulations, we are signed. But remember what I said, normally sites send sponsors and CROs a partially executed agreement. We are depending on sponsor and CRO to send us that fully executed agreement. Sites, what's going to happen if you go through all this process and you sign a contract and you send it in, and then you never get the signed fully executed agreement back? You don't have anywhere on file that documents your legal obligations to a trial. You only have that's and agreed to it. You don't have that they signed it and everyone's agreed to it. So that is actually, when we perform audits on a lot of sites, that's one of the big things that happen, is everyone is in such a rush to complete this and to go start the trial and send your startup payment and all this stuff. Fine, sign it and ship it off to the next one. Nobody does the follow-up for fully executed agreement. There are sites right now, and sites, I'm looking at you. Is it possible that you are so busy that you have trials you are working on right now without a fully executed agreement on file for that trial? Don't answer that. Instead, fix it. But one or the other, a good best business practice would be to get that fully executed agreement. Make sure that you have a fully executed agreement on file for every single thing that you do before you touch a thing. Otherwise, it is null and void. So, partially executed agreement, come back, we have a fully executed agreement. This is important. When you have hundreds of trials, you have to create a nomenclature so that you can rapidly access those trials. So this is my favorite nomenclature. So whenever I get a file that's fully executed, for me to organize it in a way that I can rapidly retrieve it, this is how I do it. One thing I should note is you're in an industry of people across the world, and everyone thinks about things in a different way. If you know when you go into a site that does not have an organized file structure, because you're going to go through and there's going to be files and they're all named like these vague CTA or some way that the CRO named it because the CRO thinks about US sites and all these things that have nothing to do with a site, things that are important to them but not to the site. So it's really important sites that these are very, very important documents, and you will be reading these for years to come. So you have to be able to rapidly filter through a ton of files very rapidly to access them. So this is my nomenclature. I would encourage your site to adopt a nomenclature. This is probably so important. You could put it into an SOP on how you name files, but I start off with the sponsor name. So a sponsor name, and then a protocol ID, and then the PI's last name. So it's PI Smith, and then the site number. That is actually one of the biggest triggers. So little secret here, there are a couple really good sponsors out there who are putting site numbers into CTAs in a very good and retrievable way. Right there, bam, site number, boom. But the site number is a very, very common thing that eludes financial and legal people because most of the time it's only included in regulatory activities. So where can you find a site number? Well, fortunately, sometimes there are some sponsors that put it very, very noticeably in a CTA. Sometimes you have to look at the footer of the CTA. Sometimes it's in there. It's in some weird lingo code. Sometimes you have to go to the email award. The only place for a finance group to find that site number is actually in the email award on the subject line. Sometimes you can find the site number there. But when it all comes down to it, eventually there will come a time where you're going to have to contact your regulatory team and you're going to say, hey, what's the site number for this trial? I just can't find it. And they're, oh yeah, it's site number XYZ. So it's there. The finance team just very, very rarely is told about it. But ironically, that has to be on every single invoice you ever send. So it's definitely a gap in the industry, which is also why it is really important to put into your file nomenclature. So when you name the site number in your CTA nomenclature, you are forcing yourself to gather that information and to get a fully executed agreement at all times. After the site number, you're going to go for a document type. So the document type is a CTA or a clinical trial agreement. Or if it's an amendment, it could be A1 for Amendment 1 or Amendment 2. It could be an SOW if it's off of a master agreement. Whatever it is, you have a doc type, and then you have a doc status. Most of the time, doc status is when you get to this point, it's going to be either partially executed or fully executed. Ideally, I don't like saving anything that's not fully executed. The only time I would refer back to partially executed is if I can't find fully executed and it's the only thing that I have. The absolute last resort, if you can't find anything at all, is to try to find the most recent draft. So you're gonna save a draft of a file. Ideally, sites, I hope you never have to go into that level. You should always have a good, solid contract filing structure. And then finally, once you know that it's fully executed, you have to pay attention to that fully executed date. You remember what I was talking about? How you can either have a fully executed date based off of the last signature. In other words, everyone signs it and then bam, you're fully executed according to that signature date. There's also an effective date at the top where you got to watch that. When is this fully executed and when is this effective? Very, very important to include in your naming nomenclature of files. All right. Pomp and circumstance, graduation, whatever you want to be, that concludes pre-study, my friends. We have gone over the entire pre-study process that a site experiences in this industry in 21 episodes. Give me a big thumbs up. If you're out there and you have any comments about pre-study, please feel free to reach out, give a comment, ask questions. Next week, we are opening the chapter on phase 2 of the process, trial management. Pre-study's over. We're sending invoices. We're collecting money. We're negotiating. We're not negotiating yet, unless you do an amendment, but we are managing a trials contract. We're not creating it. We are managing it. So different mindset, have a different set of ideas in your head about how we're going to do things, have different strategies. The fight isn't over, my friends. That's one thing I have to tell you. You thought negotiation was the end? Oh no. Oh no. Imagine a whole new layer of negotiation that we haven't even gone into. So we'll go into trial management. If you have any ideas, any questions about trial management, I keep receiving them. So I'm slowly but surely putting them out there. But I look forward to that. Now, I do remember, July 21st. I think that's next Tuesday. So I am scheduled to be on Hightower. So Note to File podcast. So look out for Brad next Tuesday. I think that I'm scheduled to talk with him. So we're probably going to be talking about a lot of what we're talking about here. We might talk about the publication. Who knows? We may talk about his newest pair of shoes. But whatever it is, we're going to have fun. And I bid a big thanks to Brad for having the opportunity to talk on Note to File. So next week, trial management, Note to File podcast. And I look forward to seeing everyone. 20th anniversary. This is huge. If you, sometimes I feel like a clinical research historian here, but if you were ever to write a history book for the clinical research industry, a CRS would be like the founding fathers, like the Declaration of Independence over there. That group has absolutely revolutionized how sites have voices in this industry. They champion really, really cool things. And I'm so excited to be part of their 20th anniversary, October 15th through 17th. CRPN's got a booth. I just got the materials, so I set up the table. It looks awesome. We're going to have a booth. We're going to have negotiation swag, and that's all I'm saying. Looking forward to sharing that. Booth 920, ask us what CRPN does for our community. Ask us how CRPN has notably helped sites to earn and save money time after time again. We've almost got it down to a science. Ask us how sponsors and CROs can save a crap ton of money working with CRPN in efficient ways so that we can all work together to save lives. And I'm be more than happy to share that story with you. It's one of my biggest passions. And I look forward to sharing it at SCRS 20th anniversary. So reach out to us, come to the summit, please. Site voices are very, very strong. We just all have to come together and share them. Website, LinkedIn, YouTube, QR codes if you can access them. If you can't, I'd love to understand how to add links. This is Dr. Fox. Please like, comment, subscribe, share your voice. See you next time.